Awesome. Father, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just the privilege of getting to do what we get to do. And Lord, I'm asking, even in this moment, as we finish off these series of podcasts, Lord, you would speak to people, speak to their hearts, speak to their struggles, their triumphs. I encourage them. Lord, we pray for Tracy. May she have a little bit more fun than she anticipates to have. And may this time just be a blessing to you and a blessing to others. Amen.
Amen.
All right, let's go. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to Stuff We Didn't Say on Sunday. This is our very last episode on work as we've been working through Thriving in Babylon. Now, here's what I want to give as a caveat. I believe this podcast is for that next CEO, that next leader, that next person who's going to be a manager in your company. I want to ask you to lean in, listen carefully and closely to advice and thoughts as we are here with the legend herself, Tracy Swanepoel. Tracy, thank you so much for being here. And I am deeply appreciative, not only because I know you personally and know a little bit of your story, but also I've had the privilege of working with you. So whatever we're going to talk about today, I've had the chance of sitting in and watching it play out.
Hey, I'm not nervous.
That's good. It's a great way to start.
Thanks, Siv. Thanks for having me. And I must say, I'm not so sure about being legendary. That just sounds old. But I'll take the positive of that. So, yeah.
Tracy, you're amazing. I have really enjoyed the moments I've had to learn from you with the work you do in Thinkspiration. You've written, what is it, 2 books?
2 books.
2 books now, mainly on work and leadership as well. And so it's been nice to ride the journey as well and get to learn. And it's made a lot of impact for me in what I do as well here at Every Nation Bryanston. So off the bat, here's what I want to ask you is when you think through your own journey and how you got to be where you are, could you help us a little bit by defining what you do, what you're passionate about, and how that journey has been? I've had to hear that journey a little bit. I had the privilege of hearing that journey a little bit, but I think it's so helpful for people who feel like there's only one way to go in something and not realizing the profound hand of God in closing doors that we always thought would be open to us.
Absolutely, Siv. And, I often think back to, there's a great quote, life has to be lived forwards, but can only be understood backwards. I think that's how it goes, right? Yeah. And, when you have the benefit, I guess, the blessing and the privilege of being as old as I am, right? As you've just emphasized.
Very young, very young.
Very young. It's so interesting to just look back on how things have unfolded and how God has brought me to a place in my life where I feel like I am sort of daily trying to live out my purpose.
That's great.
So I guess sort of starting, I'm sure you don't want to hear about too much detail before career, but I'm just going to mention when I was 10 years old, I had this dream of winning Wimbledon. I was convinced I was going to be a tennis player and only a tennis player, right? And so I visualized that. I practiced, I planned, I had like a project plan. I did all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, as we know, I didn't win Wimbledon, the championship, but I did get to go overseas on a tennis scholarship. And I was hoping to actually from there, in America, I was playing in the NCAA. So I was hoping to go and try my luck, I guess, on those other sort of circuits. But unfortunately, I had a back injury that, to cut a long, sad story short, that was the end of my tennis career. And so that was it was, when I look back on it, it doesn't seem as earth-shattering and life-quakey as it was at the time. But that brought me back to South Africa. I went and studied. My other love and my other passion was always writing. So I went and studied communication, and I actually loved studying that. I then from there went into the advertising industry, which I never sort of intended to go into, but it just so happened that was what intersected with where the opportunity was, again, that I had. And I spent probably about 5-6 years working as a strategic planner in advertising. And very interesting because, I always was sort of searching and wondering, like, what am I meant to be doing? What's my purpose? It never really is that clear. It's always like a bit foggy, and sometimes the sun shines through those clouds, right? And I remember, working in advertising and thinking, saying to a friend of mine, like, are we really, like, is this really what I'm meant to do? Like, try and do a better ad to sell people toothpaste, which there's nothing wrong with, by the way. But it's just, I sort of had this feeling, this is kind of where I'm meant to be, but I'm not quite there, sure. Right? And then as it was interesting because I guess when I look back, I can attribute it to my curiosity. So that sort of led me down the path that sort of led me to where I am now. Yeah. Because when you do strategies for companies, from an advertising marketing point of view, the question you always ask is, what makes you different as a business? Because you need to know what that is, because you've got 30 seconds usually to translate that into some piece of creative product or output. And I noticed that all the sort of service industry, clients that I worked with always said, our people are amazing. They are unique. They are special. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if, I'd love to find out more about that. And so I had an opportunity, one of the agencies that I was working at, my last one actually, and I went and investigated this, and I found everything but passion. And so it was like, they were just like, oh, this is dreadful. This is a life sentence. We're not enjoying it. And I just thought, I wonder, this seemed to be an area of opportunity for me. How could we apply principles that we used in advertising, in marketing, segmentation, branding, storytelling, to try and awaken the employees, they are a market as well. They are your internal market, right? So I then was in the process of studying my MBA, and I, had to do a dissertation. So that's what I focused it on. And by that point, I had sort of connected with a company that was working in the mining industry, nice. Which was like I really never planned to go into mining. And when I say now I've been in mining and mining related industries for the last 25 years, I sort of can't believe that.
No way.
How?
No way.
How? So that sort of led me into my passion, which I guess is really how do we get people passionate and engaged, in the world of work.
That's amazing. So I want to dive into your story a little bit and break it up a little bit into parts. That moment where you want to play tennis, you want to be the next Steffi Graf if she was
Chris Evert. Oh, Steffi was my age, so we didn't look up to her. She actually played with
I was trying to not reveal your age.
No, it's fine. Okay, no, Steffi would have been, but she was actually my age, Steffi. So Chris Evert, right?
Fair enough. So I think so many of us go through that. I never wanted to be a pastor. This is not my plan A, right?
Yeah.
And it, at the time, you don't realize that whatever it is that you think your plan A is,
yes,
that it actually needs God to redefine and work and sometimes redirect. And
yes.
Now in hindsight, I'm going, yeah, man, this is exactly where I'm meant to be. So how do you, at that time when you're thinking you're going this route and it closes on you, what are some things that you went through that actually helped for you to get past that place of pain, that you look back and you go, that actually has remained a pillar of my strength even today to build new things, start new things, and go in different directions even now?
Yeah, I suppose, it is a long time ago. And I often think about, what happened was I had the back injury, then I had the surgery, and the whole time we were still on plan A. So I'm just saying, I had the surgery, I went back to the States to do the rehab, and so we're still on plan A, I'm going to just take a little bit longer, not 3 months, 6 months. It's a little bit worse. Just, they had to fuse my back, not just do another procedure. So I'm still on plan A. And then I actually slipped and fell on black ice in the States with like 6 months after my fusion, which was just, but I remember thinking this is weird. Like this must be God. Like this must be a message that this is not where I'm meant to be, And it was really, obviously it was hard, but I think just feeling like that was such a powerful message and signal. I had peace about it quite soon about that my life was going to go off in a direction that I hadn't anticipated. And I think what really helped me a lot at the time is, as much as I was passionate about tennis and it was fairly all-consuming, I also had other things that I loved doing.
That's
I had
so good.
and now we talk about it as strengths, I think you get to know yourself in those sort of times. You need to be resilient, and you also need to know what else you love doing. So I sort of focused that attention onto what is it that I really love doing. And it was writing. Now, that's not very directional in terms of, what do you go and do with that? But I think that helped me to sort of figure out how to put one foot in front of the other and get to that place, and it's never like a big screen reveal,
Yeah.
It's like it unfolds.
Writings on the wall, like Daniel.
No, it's never like that. Well, not to me anyway. It's sort of do the next right thing. Take the next right step. Yeah. And I realized as I started that degree, I loved it. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. I started studying psychology and I loved doing that. And let me just tell you how old I am. Let's go back to that. It was at RAU, Randse Afrikaanse Universiteit.
Oh Lord.
In Afrikaans. Wow. In Afrikaans. So every subject that I studied, including stats, I know in Afrikaans mostly, right?
Well, I also love what you're saying now in terms of do the next right thing. I think I can summarize my life in many ways with that statement. I think the world is constantly inviting us to take the next biggest leap instead of do the next right thing, which I think is really, really helpful. I wanted to press on you a little bit here because I've been reading a book called Range by Dave Epstein. And he speaks about exactly that, the difference between a Roger Federer and a Tiger Woods, who a Tiger Woods was all about fixated into golf, whilst Roger Federer actually had a broad of things that he loved and that he could do, and how those who actually have range earlier on end up being better at the one thing that they might do later on. And I think
very interesting.
It's actually such a great parenting book, and thinking through how do you let your children in their teens and the young age broaden their experience versus you were born to be a tennis player, just play tennis,
Exactly.
So I'm even hoping for guys who are watching this in their 20s that broaden your hobbies and skills, create range for whatever doors God might open.
I love that because, thinking about, going back to my tennis, this is not a tennis podcast, by the way, just in case, but one of the things that I realized early on, I was not the most brilliantly talented tennis player, right? I mean, I'm not the hugest, I'm not the, I wasn't going to outpower anyone. So I thought, I need to win with my mental game. So from early on, let's say like 13, 14, I remember once a week I used to sit down with an absolutely fabulous coach of mine, Joan, and we used to have a 1-hour psychology session. One of the books I read at that time was called The Inner Game of Tennis. Now, all of that stuff. So it's about how you think, how you self-manage, how you don't get nervous, how you manage your emotions on the court.
Yeah.
How you think is how you win. So it was very interesting because a lot of that has come back to
now
me.
what you're using now. Yeah.
I mean, when we talk about, leading yourself, when you talk about how your attitude, all of those things, I go back to, some of like those ancient thoughts. And I guess that really impacted on me. So it was never, in the end, when I reflect back on it, it wasn't actually about the tennis. It wasn't about my forehand or my backhand. It was about the going, approaching a situation, being resilient, knowing that you're going to lose a lot of points, knowing that there's some setbacks, going over to the States on my own at 18, it was a very different time. There were no emails, no internet, no anything. I had to fend for myself. And that was such a good experience, a growth experience. However, coming back to should you be like one track mind or sort of broaden? I think there's a role for both. Yeah. So I think I've appreciated in hindsight the role of having a big dream. I used to fixate on that winning the Wimbledon thing. I mean, we say it as a bit of a joke now because it is a bit of a joke, but it used to be I visualized it. And again, it echoes in the work that we do now. We talk about companies, what's your top of your mountain? What's your compelling picture of the future? It's so important to be able to visualize and think about the big thing and also the other stuff that's involved.
That's great. You sit around tables with CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs, and one of the things that really made me want to have you on this podcast is to look at both sides of the table, the employee and the leader, for lack of a better word. What are some leadership traps that you find in the workplace that CEOs, leaders, entrepreneurs fall into that actually are not helpful for the people that they are meant to be leading or serving, however you want to describe that?
Okay, so I just want to share with you that I used to think, like when I was sort of in my early 20s, studying my first sort of job, I had this like idea that the people there, the ones at the top, they had it all figured out. They were like at peace, relaxed, cool, because they knew how to do this thing, right? So what I've discovered subsequently is nobody has it figured out. Everyone is doing the best that they can do. Having said that,
why do you think we pretend that we have it figured out?
So
those who are up there.
No, why do you think we pretend? Because we're too scared. Because we're in that pretend. We are, the sleepless kings, as you mentioned. It's about. I mean, I honestly think if you get to the root of that, it's the insecurity, the need to prove yourself. And I think you asked me about what are some of the traps that everybody, all of us, I'm not saying them, all of us fall into, is that you feel like you have to know it all. You feel like you got to have all the answers. You feel like you need to put on the mask of whatever it's meant to be. I don't know, of success, and in fact, it's just the opposite. Yeah. And I think, again, the sort of sense that I think what really is something that I'm passionate about is you cannot lead others if you can't lead yourself. So a lot of people that are in sort of very, sort of the corner, the C-suite, are there because they are technical experts. They have risen through the ranks because of being the technical, whatever, the mechanical engineer, the mining engineer, the CA, the actuary, whatever. So the skills that got them there are technical skills.
Yeah.
Then along the way, they are put in charge of people, and leadership is kind of like it's like a bandit pack, buy one, get one free. You've got the position, but you get the responsibility. And I mean, there's no, often people are sort of, I don't know how to do this. So they kind of look around and they go, well, okay, I'll do what I've observed being done. And there's a lot of danger in that. When you are particularly if I can talk about mining and resources industries, it's a very hierarchical command and control. Yes, I know it's changing, and there certainly are great indications, but people still, there's still the do it like I say and don't talk back. So the blind spots.
Don't tell stories. That's my favorite one.
Don't tell stories.
Go to the mines.
Don't bring me stories. And we out there saying, stories really are the things that connect you. Yeah, I know. You've seen a little bit of that, right?
I enjoy that.
Yeah, but I think the blind spots are that self-knowledge. So I would say, for me, what we all have to focus more on is, be brave enough to know yourself and be brave enough to show up as yourself.
That's good.
So don't put the mask on. Be authentic, because by being authentic, that's when you connect to people. Listening. I mean, that's a whole, we need a whole nother podcast.
Just on that.
But just, I remember having a conversation with, years ago, with a CEO, and, he was having trouble in his team and beyond. And I said to him, maybe what about just some sessions where you hear where people are coming from, And, he said, there's no ways I can do that. And I said, why not? And he said, because then people will think that I don't know what to do,
Sure.
So just like my mantras are, what do you think? I don't understand. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you help me figure this out? I would love if there would be more of that.
I think that's great. I'm going to challenge you a little bit and challenge myself. Because as we were talking about masks, I started to think, what are masks that I gravitate towards in the places of my insecurity? And to be honest, I think one of the masks I gravitate towards is leadership. I'm hoping that the people who come to Every Nation Bryanston, or maybe people might be serving KZN or East Africa, would feel that I'm a good leader. And I think the way that plays out is when they don't feel I'm a good leader. Mm-hmm. The place it hits me is in a place that is reflective, that the viewpoint is maybe more of an idol than a positive influence in how I engage. And I think it's having that realization has been helpful for me.
Yeah.
That the leader does not have to be perfect. And the leader must actually come flaws and all. Because I think you end up leading the kind of community that you feel you cannot come to it as you are.
Yes.
You have to come to it as it wants you to be.
In the shape of.
In whatever form of leadership you think they want.
Yeah.
And you limit the opportunity for mistakes actually that could move you forward. So for me, that's probably a mask. And you've written 2 books. You've done a whole bunch of things. For you, what would be that kind of gravitating towards a certain kind of mask, if you have one?
If I have, I've got so many. I take my glasses off now, right? No, I mean one of my sort of refuges is being a perfectionist. Making sure that I can do everything as perfectly as it could possibly be done. Yeah. And it's extremely self-limiting. It comes from insecurity. I always say I'm a recovering perfectionist. When I wrote that in my first book, I always laughed because there was a typo on perfectionist, which that was just like only the irony. God. Only God. Okay, I know you got a sense of humor, right? Yes, so, yeah. So I think, I think that's an issue, and it doesn't. The question I always ask myself is, I don't sort of consciously think, well, how am I leading or how am I going about it? I'm thinking about how am I creating an environment where people can be their best selves. So. And there are times when I'm certainly not my best self. You have witnessed that a lot, or somewhat, let's say somewhat. Edit out a lot, right?
Vice versa.
Yeah. No, but the thing is that I think, having that relief that you don't have to be absolutely on it, perfect. And the thing is that what I've also realized is there also needs to be space for other people in bringing their skills to the table. So, I really do feel strongly that, being authentic and vulnerable, not to the point where it's, inappropriate, but it is the birthplace of connection. So, and the essence of leadership is not, I don't think it is defined by connection. It is a relationship.
Sure.
So it's like so we've got to actually drop the masks, I mean, the other one is, from sort of, I guess, growing up very achievement oriented, very sports oriented, tennis, you win or you lose. It's pretty tough. You get addicted to the result. You get addicted to the A, or addicted to the win. And what's quite interesting is in life, it doesn't work like that. I remember coming home once, Zach is now 20. Zach was grade 1 or grade 2. And I said to him, it's been like a hard day, and, I hope did this meeting, but I don't know, I don't know if it went well or and I said, I kind of wish I was you, because at least in your, you would know, did you get an A, So he wrote a little thing. He said, Mommy, I give you an A+. Oh, sweet.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. But I mean, I remember realizing after that conversation how, that's my mental model. It's it's almost intent. I don't see it that often. But it's not constructive.
Yeah. You brought up Zach, and before I speak about, our work experience coming into corporate environment, there's something that you and Uncle B do really well. And whenever I'm around the three of you and Zach is speaking, I'm always amazed at not just how much Zach knows and just the way he thinks about the world, but it's always made me fascinated about what are some of the intentional things. Now, this is a selfish question. Sorry, podcast watchers. What are some of the things you've done to deliberately bring your son into environments where they can think money, think business, think leadership, man, because you do that so well. And I was having a conversation with, I think it was Siobhan actually earlier, and he was speaking about the same thing, wanting to, at a younger age, bring our kids into those similar environments, that it's not something you do in your 20s, 30s. But I've seen Uncle B do, I've seen, and I've heard you say a few things as well. Maybe just a few thoughts, what you guys have actually done that has allowed Zach to be exposed in that kind of world quite early on.
Yeah, that's hard, because it wasn't like we sat down and had a plan to do that. I guess it's just the ecosystem, the environment. I think, Zach has always been a mini human being. He was never of course he was a baby and whatever, but we always sort of treated him like that, like another listen to him. I mean, I always wanted to know, what does he think? Yeah. And I guess likewise, Bernard, we do work closely together. So, I mean, many, many car trips, we would talk about issues just with each other, and he would be in the car seat, in the back seat, sometimes asleep, but maybe he's just, maybe he was just absorbing that. I think another thing that I believe very passionately in is that I really think we need to look for and value people's strengths. Yeah. So in terms of just, people that I'm around, people that the team that I lead, Zach particularly, I focus on the strengths. So, I mean, Zach is very curious. That's great. So he will go and explore things. He will learn, so we have conversations about why that's so important. But it's never been, this is okay. We're going to do this.
Sure, we're
now.
Gonna teach you this. We're going to teach you this now.
It's just kind of in the conversations that we have. Zach has a little. Sounds like the perfect child, right? And of course he is. However, listen to this. So, my second book, which was published 3 years ago. Yeah. I'm actually going to be recording the audio book coming out early next year. So anyway. Zach has not read my book, right? And this is his comeback, when he gets nagged about it. Yeah. I have lived through every principle in the book, right?
That you've written about. I don't need to read this thing.
So I'm just saying, maybe there's some room for improvement there.
But I think that's such a low-hanging fruit of don't assume, and I'm learning this from me now, don't assume that your children need to be 18 to be involved in conversations about money, about saving, about investments.
Yes.
Even if you're having the conversation between you and your spouse, it's not just as simple as, let me sit and teach you about investments, but bring them in, let them sit around the table.
I mean, if I had to summarize it, he has always been part of our world, and our world is like one. So we talk about business, work, and then also I think which played a huge role and still does is, he's grown up whenever we go to the game farm. He's been, and Bernard's brother ran that. So he would go out on the game drives with the two of them. And yes, they would talk away, I don't know what, but all about the business. Sure. And he would just, again, absorb that. And I think it brought out his natural curiosity. He would ask questions. So I think it's really about creating the environment, the atmosphere, you know?
Because I was raised with the whole, a child must be quiet and be in the other room.
Yeah.
Because the adults are speaking. Now, one day my parents will watch this. You Are Amazing, Vine Lodge. Really did amazingly well with what they had.
Yes.
And even what you're saying to me now, I'm like, oh my word, I'm going to have to really rethink the idea of my own personal comfort. It's like the whole idea of when my friends are here who I respect and we are around the same table, instead of saying this is adult time, to actually allow my children to hang out with us and we speak
Completely.
And it's normal.
Completely.
Just that one idea is just incredible for me, and thank you. That's helpful.
I was very lucky in the way I grew up in, this was not lucky. I mean, my dad died when I was 10 years old. And so the privilege, I guess, that I had was I was kind of like an adult from then on in the house with my mom. So single mom, my sister, my gran, myself. And there was we talked about everything. There was no you talking about kid stuff.
Yes.
The drawback of that is I don't really know how to do kid stuff too well. So there's pluses and minuses,
sure.
right?
Some kind of dotted line is needed somewhere.
Exactly.
Appropriate level.
Yeah.
when we speak about work, one of the things that I think we can tend to miss when we speak about work is the definition of what work is. Right?
Yes.
We say it all the time, even as we are going through the Babylon series and speaking to different people. We'll be like, oh man, I'm going back to Babylon tomorrow, I'm going back to Pharaoh's kingdom,
Yes.
I went back to being a slave. What is work in your mind?
Well, currently, I think, I'll tell you how I think about it in a minute. I think generally out there, just think about our faces when people go, work.
Yeah, Monday.
Work.
Well done.
Monday. It's like it's a sentence to be served a little bit. Even, looking at, when you talk to CEOs and they're retiring, they're like, oh, now I'm free. I can go and do what I want to do. It's I've often called it like a 4-letter word, not in the good sense. It's really negative. And I think that is terrible. That is a perversion, I believe, of what it should be.
Work should be, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I was writing my first book, I went into a bit of research in terms of like, where does the concept come from? And there are different sort of varieties of it. And there are some quite horrible, derivatives. But one I found helpful to me was that work and worship,
Yeah.
in the Hebrew word avodah, they're actually derived from the same word,
Exactly.
avodah, right? So, and avodah means service. So, I mean, I just think that that is, I mean, if you're in the marketplace and if you work is a way of living out God's purpose. I mean, it is your opportunity to make a difference to the world, to live out your purpose, to play to your strengths, fulfill your destiny. So it's an incredible opportunity to be part of the story that God is writing. Yeah. But I think it's very obscured by the things the man-made things that we've put in place, because we think it's about, the hierarchy, climbing the ladder to the top. And make no mistake, I don't want to, miss the fact that it is important to work because we need to get money to live. Yeah. So it's a means to an end, but I think we are a little bit too focused on that. Yes, that is a key component of it. But the other component, the part of actually being who we are in God's story and the role that He wants us to play, is something that we don't focus on, because you don't need a position for that. You don't need a title on, the corner office. You don't need any of that stuff. You are there. You are like the little yeast that you, I think, mentioned. It's about what difference you make, the influence that you have, not the position that you hold.
So what I love about that, and it's not only just the beautiful definition of work and worship together, but it's the disposition. If I enter the workplace, or if I enter the place of worship, those are, in the current state we're in, those are two different
your attitude will change a bit.
And I have two different approaches to it. And I think the one assumes I'm about to engage God in something that is profoundly eternal, and the other one assumes I'm about to clock in.
That's right.
And I will eventually clock out.
And sit and count the 8 hours. I think I shared this with you when I was thinking about this. I made up a new word, workship. I don't know if it's.
I don't know either, but
I'm just taking that for now. But I've just been thinking about that, and I've been thinking, when you're working, I mean, I had a day today, like one of those days. It was Monday, just another manic Monday, right? And then I kept thinking, worship. This is like the part you need to play in God's story. Keep thinking of that. And I think keeping that front and center for me is helpful. Yeah. Yes, there are so many things that I would dearly love to change about how the man-made construct of work is now and should change, but like one step at a time. I think we see the world as we are. So if we change the way we see work, I think some things would change,
And does that statement also mean maybe if we allow the way we see ourselves to also change,
Indeed,
it will change the way we engage in work, that we actually worshipers coming into an environment where there is a bottom line that must be achieved, but we come in as worshipers, not as slaves or as whatever it is that we have in our mindset.
And I mean, the anxiety, the fear that we all experience, what is the offset to that? How do you, and I think for me, it connects back to purpose.
Yeah.
What is it that I really am meant to be doing here?
That's good.
I don't think, in a lot of cases, in the work that we do, in the work that I do, it's not about, necessarily achieving the top, the thing that's out there, but it might be, creating something that's going to influence one other person. I mean, that's often the question that Bernard and I talk about. Is he will say, well, is it enough if what we did influenced one other person positively? Which kind of puts it in perspective, so.
I know if I was watching this, I would hear it, and the idea of come to your work environment as a worshiper feels soft skills like.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
And I almost, and I know both you and I don't like the idea, even the phrasing of soft skills, right? But I want to make an appeal. I think worship is one of the most aggressive things one can do. It is the fight for our souls to remain anchored. I don't know if there's any other fight you can have that is more aggressive, more daily, more that requires more vigilance than the fight to allow the soul to stay marinated in the reality of who God is.
Awesome.
So anyone who's watching going, oh, that sounds like a Christian thing to say. Well, as much as we are Christians, I think at the core of it is realizing how much our souls can be raptured by everything in life, and it takes more work to still the soul in the midst of all kinds of pleasures and pains. So it is a very much aggressive word throughout the Bible. So I think that's important.
I love that.
Soft skills. You came from a conference now about leadership. It wasn't the G20, it wasn't the B20.
It's always 20s. It was it was the Thinkers 50 was the one. Okay, so there was a number, right?
They missed the whole point. They missed the whole
they didn't
mark.
have 20. It was Thinkers 50 in London, and the Drucker Forum.
A little bit about leadership, and you said some things I thought were interesting. What are some of the ways that the global world is thinking about leadership that when you think of our South African context, we're actually more advanced in the way we are currently thinking about leadership?
Yeah, that is, so I can comment purely from the point of view of what I was exposed to. I could be way off because I'm not commenting from actually being in, working overseas. But my perception of what was discussed was, we are, interesting, I think what we are really good at by necessity is understanding diversity and working together with not just a tick the box kind of thing, but really like with a deep understanding of why it's important, how to work with it. Interestingly enough, that was not, I don't think the word was mentioned at all. And we were talking about things like, how do you, innovation, and obviously that's so I think we've got, we've just got a lot more miles, a lot more experience. We don't take it for granted. Yeah. I think if you are functioning in that kind of environment, and this is feedback I've had from colleagues that work internationally, is there's an assumption, I look like you, I talk like you, we went to the same school, we're the same. Like we don't have to really have a deep conversation. And that is a misperception. That is definitely. So there's a little bit of a sense of, I think, almost just taking it for granted. And I think I think almost a superficiality, an assumption. An assumption that, okay, we will all work together perfectly. We're going to have perfect teams and they're going to be organized like this. And, and again, as I say to you, I'm assuming that, but I do think that we have a sense. The other thing that is amazing about South Africa is we are so resilient. We are can do. We will always make a plan and find a way. And, you see that in just the way that our people go all over the world. I mean, even from my tennis playing days, they would always say, we love South Africans because you just have a different kind of attitude. I mean, you look at in the mining space, South African mining executives are the most sought after. Natasha Viljoen, we are very proud of in the sense that she is now leading Newmont, huge global, I think it could be the biggest gold mining company in the world. Wow. So we do have that resilience. We have that can do, solve problems.
Can I mention one other example?
Yes.
Along the same vein, in our every nation world.
Yes.
Probably some of the most hardest ground, especially in nations that are open, is Europe. Some of the hardest places that people have planted churches in is actually in Europe. The majority of our every nation churches in Europe have been planted by South Africans. Really? Exactly the same, the ability to be resilient, to be diverse, to navigate, contexts like that. So, honestly, I can't, this is not a proper comment, right? Sure.
But just the sense that I got is that they are not, it's kind of hard to get in there. They're hard to crack, in terms of and I've heard from people working in those kind of, in those internationally, it's difficult to get in. Mm-hmm. It's like to navigate in. So I can totally believe that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love that. The more you speak, I'm like, man, dear future CEO, watch this. The next one. I think when I look at every nation, Bryanston, there are so many people who have that ability.
Yes.
The amount of people who I believe in whatever place, whatever position, whatever non-position,
yes,
are going to impact the way this nation looks, the way this nation feels.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we can easily disqualify ourselves because we think, I'll never get there. But I hope people can watch this going, so when I come into a place of either leadership or influence or in whatever, whether it's over 2, whether it's over 2,000, what could I do? How could I think? And I think this would be profoundly helpful. I want to pop in another question, which is about work engagement. We know, as you've shared some of your stats with us, that many people leave the work environment not because they didn't get great bonuses, but because their managers are terrible and maybe have created either toxic or very hard environments. And so if one is in that environment, if one finds himself in a scenario with a tough, terrible manager or an environment that they feel is just really tough to be in, what are some things that you could help us with in terms of thinking through how we could navigate that scenario?
Gosh, I mean, it is awful. And I think one of the real sort of fails is when, often we ask ourselves, what does a good leader look like? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I can tell you what a bad leader looks like. Sure. So I've had so people, I mean, it's not a happy place. there are lots of toxic environments out there. I remember when it was my second year of working. And I was headhunted. I was working in advertising, and I was headhunted to go to this great agency, the number one agency in South Africa. I'm not going to mention the name, right? It's still a big agency now. And I was so blown away. It was I went for the interview, the brand stuff, I call it the plumage, it was like a big bright bird that attracted me. And, the clients were just blue chip clients. I thought, well, this is amazing, right? And about 2 months in, everything was going okay. My immediate boss, our department was great, seemed okay, it didn't. And about 2 months in, I was tasked with doing a brand strategy review for one of the big clients of the agency. And my boss said to me, you know what? This was basically started by this brand. The inception, was done by the CEO of the agency. So I think if I was you, I would set up some time and just go and pick his brain, right? Yeah. Just go talk to him, right? Seems like what could go wrong? Yeah. And in my naivety and innocence, I didn't see this coming at all, right? So I made the appointment, went to see this guy, and the glass, of course, glass walls for transparency, et cetera, et cetera. They, I remember in my interview, they'd given me this little book of, the culture and how things worked and And I was had that with me and went in to see this guy. And this man just exploded at me for no reason. He started screaming and shouting at me. What was I doing there? I wasn't following due process. Did I know how long it had taken him to write this book? And he threw the book at me, thank goodness, a little pamphlet, right? And he chased me out of his office. Wow. In advertising with glass walls. I ran into the car. And okay, so it sounds comical now, but I tell you, Sirv, I was devastated. Now, remember, little perfectionist, get 100%, didn't know what hit her there. Yeah. And I remember thinking, I cannot stay here. I cannot stay here one more minute. This is disgusting. And then what made it even worse, I went back to my boss and told him what had happened. And he said, yeah, he does that, That's how we get, he gets the new people to kind of, okay. So I thought, no, I can't. And then this sense came to me. It could only have been the Holy Spirit, and it was definite. No matter what, I need to stick this out for a year at least. A year at least, because I'm going to learn so much. Yeah. I'm going to put myself in a position to be on the clients that I could learn the most from. I'm going to stick my hand up for every opportunity, and I'm going to do this for a year, because it seemed like a year is doable. It's like the comrades, there's an end to it, right? So it was so, I remember how hard it was even now to get up and go to that place every single day. Yeah. And halfway through, I got this fantastic offer from another agency. They said, we'll pay for your MBA and come and you can be the head of department. And I said, it all sounds great, but can I come back in 6 months? And they actually said yes. So I toughed it out.
For a whole year. And I just want to say, the stuff I learned in that year, I still use today. Yeah. Now, I'm not, so that's a little anecdote. I'm not saying it applies to everyone in a toxic environment at all. But I think just keeping in mind that there is a bigger picture, keeping in mind your purpose. And I go back to, in horrible environments where you are feeling, just disrespected, it's so important to be cognizant of who you are in Christ, and your strengths. And we've done these kind of exercises, the hot seat, it's really important to upweight that, I believe, because that's what keeps you, that's going to validate you. That's going to make you feel good. And just in case people don't know, a hot seat is an amazing exercise of putting someone in the middle and actually allowing the team to say, here's what we see in you.
Yes.
Here's the value you bring to the team. I think it goes back to even this idea of community.
Yeah.
We so undervalue it. And I think God was a genius in bringing an imperfect community together that's actually meant to figure out ways to do life.
Yeah.
Because then this idea of you being at work and navigating a very painful scenario, it happens in light of a community that can come around you.
Exactly.
And support you, remind you who you are. Because many times we need to be.
Absolutely remind you
need
who you
people
are.
to remind you, this is who you are. I'm glad you're
Yes.
famous.
Yes.
Sit down. I'm sad that you're going through a tough time, but stand up. I think those are very critical things. I want to throw you right into a little bit of a deep end question about next generation. I know it's a passion in your own heart about how do we help people who are coming into the workplace for the very first time. If you had the opportunity to speak to a whole bunch of people right now who are saying, I'm about to enter Babylon,
Yay.
what would you say?
I would say, yay, Babylon needs you. Okay.
Praise the Lord.
No, absolutely. I am so excited about this new influx because it's so needed. The first thing I would say is, I've got a few things to say. So the first thing I would say is, don't think that you need a title, a position, a reserved parking spot, or anything like that to influence. You can start leading from day one. Leading is about influencing. And like you mentioned in one of the sermons, the yeast. Be the yeast for your workplace to be better, right? Secondly, I would say, you have a whole lot of skills, right? That you sort of armed with. So you know your stuff in terms of skills, but do you know yourself? And I think that's often where there's a lot of work to be done, is know your strengths. It always starts there. And that leads you, and sometimes it's not like a linear recipe kind of process. It's what is the purpose that you need to fulfill? Because connecting to that does a whole lot of stuff. It helps you withstand a toxic environment. It helps you deal with imposter syndrome. It really, knowing your purpose is really, really important. And I'm totally, I guess, purpose is not something you just wake up one morning or know. Yeah. It is a process of discovering through thinking about it, reflecting on it, wondering about it. I still wonder daily about my purpose. I have wondered for years. So it's not like a banner written across the sky, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's as I said earlier, an unfolding. So I think knowing yourself, knowing what you're good at, what you love about what you do, what is it that you do that sort of almost you would do for free? Yeah. What are those kind of things? Then be curious. Find out stuff. Ask questions. There is such a great quote. I just want to see if I can find it. And I just love this.
I love that your phone is on during this podcast.
Is that okay?
This is very much okay. I'm looking at everybody else who is like, are the phones off? Not this phone.
Oh, this phone is on silent.
Exactly, it's on silent.
So this phone is on silent. I just want to read this. So this is from this author, Sahil Bloom, and he says, the most important piece of career advice, be the person who can figure it out. You'll be given tasks you have no idea how to complete because breaking news, no one has any idea in a lot of cases, right? Yeah. So there's nothing more valuable than someone who can just figure it out. Do some work, ask key questions, get it done. People will fight over you. And I mean, I know young people that I work with that I always say, like in any situation, I actually it's not even related to technical skills or expertise or anything like that. I just want that attitude in my environment, someone that can figure it out. So I think that is, that's really important. This is maybe speaking to myself progress over perfection. So forgive me if I'm ministering to myself here, but it's actually about making progress. It's actually about moving forward. Was today a little bit, did I make progress? Did I make progress? You don't have to do things perfectly. No one does things perfectly. So I think that, and I think my last one is that be resilient. It is not going to unfold like you have it in your imagination, like you want it to. There are going to be setbacks. The key thing that's going to help you when that happens is there's almost an interplay between resilience and purpose or ambition. The keeping focus, keeping your eyes fixed on what it is, where you want to go. And when I say where you want to go, it's not like a destination. It is about, being fulfilling God's purpose for you in the workplace. That helps when there are setbacks.
It's great. I really am grateful for that. So I want to end with this, if you don't mind, Tracy. I'm going to give you rapid fire questions. I'm going to give you about 7 to 10.
We did not prepare for this.
Yeah, this is true. I'm going to give you about 7 or 10, and you can only either give a one-word answer or a sentence. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Who does this to you? That's my first question, sir.
My kids.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right, great. Current book you're reading?
The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom.
Okay, great.
I read a few at the same time, but let's go with that.
Is that the one you...
Because the other one is it's about Taylor Swift. There's nothing like this. It's a Harvard Business Review case study on how great she is.
Swift.
I love her, and it is awesome. Okay, sorry, not one word.
One book that you recommend to anyone who wants to better their leadership?
It would be that Sahil Bloom book, again, The 5 Types of Wealth. And I'll tell you why. Because it's such a great multidimensional perspective on what you are trying to do.
Great.
I would say that would... There's so many. I'm just trying to think of another...
I know you read quite a bit.
Yeah.
Hardest year in the last decade, and why?
Hardest year in the last decade. I would say, look, probably everyone answers this, but COVID, in the sense that it was so different. I mean, we were not used to, it wasn't the swing of things. So we had to reinvent and change and do things differently. But also so much good came out of that.
It's good.
Yeah.
Good. If you had to finish the sentence, what would you say? I am... Who am I? I am...
Peaceful.
Really? And?
Who am I?
Yes, you as a person, your identity. If
my
you had to
identity,
describe
I am a
who
child.
I am as Tracy.
Okay, I am a child of God.
I really like the peaceful one, though.
The peaceful one
I'm
is...
like, man, I need that too in my life.
No, so can I interrupt your little rapid fire thing here, right? No, I've been thinking about this because I think one of the things that makes work tough is people are so insecure, they are so fearful, and how that actually expresses itself in the environment is in not good stuff. Sure. Toxic environments, people feeling insecure, the boss shouting, the wanting, whatever. And I think that we are insecure because we are not focused on finding the right path forward. Sure. So we want to get to the top, but when we get to the top, guess what? Sure. You've got the money, you've got the car, you've got the whatever. You're still feeling insecure and fearful.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, what would be the thing that you would want to feel? And I think peace is where we want to, is really where you want to go. It's not, I mean, the other stuff that we think, the position, the whatever, those people are just as stressed as everybody else.
It's what the Bible says, gaining wealth without sorrow. That sense of growing, but I didn't do it in a way that actually leaves me with guilt and condemnation and sorrow and a sense of loss.
Exactly.
But I still have peace in my soul, regardless of the movement forward,
Yeah.
Back to Rapid.
Sorry.
Thank
you.
Worst advice you've ever received?
Focus on your development areas.
Okay, like your like negatives, the things you don't do too well.
So the things you do terribly. I mean, the good old performance management, dreaded appraisal session.
Which I'm about to do just now.
Okay, so we'll have a chat about that. If I could change one thing in the world, it would be that. Really? Because you change the world with your strengths, not with your development areas. My admin is as bad as it ever was. My IT skills are probably worse. That's not my contribution. That's not my dent to the universe. Yeah. But I spent a lot of time getting training for that, talking about it. And in fact, the things that make me like unique and could actually push whatever I'm doing further, you don't talk about. So yeah.
So if someone is watching and they're saying, well, maybe you've had the ability to staff someone to do your weaknesses. Yes. And they don't have the ability to get the person and they are the admin and they are and they are by themselves. Would you give the same idea or would you phrase it differently?
So, yes. So one of the things that I think sounds a bit utopian is, choose do the thing you love and you'll never work another day in your life, right? I kind of believed that for a while.
Like all of us.
Yeah. And what I've realized is I have my own business. So theoretically I should, and I love what I do. And I still, there's still things that I have to do that I don't like doing. I still have to do the darn IT and the admin and all of that kind of stuff. I think a much more constructive way of thinking about it is to focus on what it is that you love in what you do. So, and I actually, my book, I'm changing my answer. I'm just going back and changing my answer because this book by two guys, Marcus Buckingham, Ashley Goodall, wrote a book called 9 Lies About Work. Yeah. Now I would say every leader should read that. They talk about red threads, these, like what are the things that you love in what you do? So that means that it's not going to be this utopian thing that you love every moment. There are moments that you don't love, but is there enough that you do love that is fueling you? Because that energizes you,
sure.
Right?
So you would say, do what you have to do, but focus on your strengths.
But also, so it's like balancing. So if you think of your day, don't have a day of just doing all the things that drain you. Sure. Build in stuff that energizes you as well.
I agree with that. And let me say this, especially if there's any, even pastors watching. I think sometimes you can actually even lead a church to a place that you no longer enjoy it because you've delegated your strengths.
Ah, yes.
And you no longer, in the name of all things delegation, you're no longer allowing yourself to play in the places that actually give you energy because you've been told delegate, and I think it's so important to keep those things, keep some of those things that actually give life to you when you do them. It impacts your team. It impacts everybody when you
absolutely. That is a brilliant point. I think that is, that's a very sad thing, and you see it in the corporate world all the time. The guy that actually loved doing that particular job, doesn't do it anymore. Because he's the boss or she's the boss, and it's now somebody else's. So it is important. I mean, it's important to make sure that you do have those things that you love because they give energy,
Last question, and you can't say strengths if you don't mind. Best advice you've ever received?
Focus on progress over perfection. It's about progress, not perfection.
That's great. Tracy, you're amazing. I'm really grateful that you could have time to be here. And I really meant what I said, that I think as people consider their future, whether it be, future mom, future dad, future CEO, future leader, in whatever space, I hope that people can listen deeply to the insights, the ideas, the thoughts, and even the stories, and begin to rethink and reframe their life for better impact. I love what you said earlier, and I'm hoping you might rephrase it again. Just what you and Bernard always talk about is this going to impact? I think you said another soul.
If one person's life is better, that brings you right back. Because I tell you, reality is you're dealing with, client that's being difficult, or people that are whatever, or, this is life, this is reality. And then you just have to think about the path.
That's good.
Just like single-mindedly get the path to, if that one person is exposed to the result of what you are doing, is their life better? And is that what you are meant to be doing, propelled by God's purpose, to act on? So,
and that is worth us closing on. Tracy, you're amazing. Wonderful people. We'll see you soon. We'll see you this coming Sunday. And if not, you'll catch us on our next podcast. Much love. Boom.
Thank you, sir.
Well done. That is the wrap.
That is the wrap. Was
10 million podcasts. Episodes.
Oh my gosh, 10 million, right? Listen, we were all over the place. Was that okay? Were you?
It's great. All over the place. It's just perfect. It will be rewatched. If we need to tweak, we'll tweak. But I think it was good that it was all over the place. Let's get feedback, Gwen.